Thank you very much, Fred. You are one hell of a journalist, might I add.
Well, thank you. I know that you're a very good wrestler, but I also know you're a wrestling fan. And I know that, if my guess is right, that you were probably a supporter of Chris Benoit before this, being that he was Canadian, being that he's pretty much one of the best wrestlers in the entire world, had complete respect from all corners. How badly did the death of Chris Benoit affect you personally?
It affected me great because, like you said, he's a Canadian wrestler, and he made it to the big time. He was all over the world, renowned all over the world. Chris Benoit was, and when I first heard that Benoit had annihilated his family and taken his own life, I didn't believe it.
No.
No, there's something more to this story. I can't see a guy like Chris Benoit ever doing that. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to meet and speak with Chris Benoit, and it was a great experience for me. But talking to him, he just had so much knowledge for me. When I first considered going into wrestling, and he told me, he's like, you got to get yourself into a wrestling school, start training, and learn the tricks of the trade, and learn the mentality of this business, because it's a very, very cutthroat business. Professional wrestling is, and I'll say it again, it's a business. And pretty much the words that he gave me one time, he said, at one point when you start wrestling and you keep going and going, at one point when you're not having fun or you're not making any money, it's time to get out. And I was like, wow, okay, so if you're not having money, he told me stories where he was broke, but he was still having fun. He just kept going and going and going. So different wrestling promotions and stuff like that. When he was in school, he'd skip his class, he'd go ask his teachers, I need to train, and his teachers gave him that time off. All right, go train, and it worked for him. But to hear that he annihilated his family is just first of all, how can anyone ever hurt their family like that? It's just unreal. And now that the whole story's come out that he had suffered a severe amount of brain trauma and brain damage throughout wrestling, and the fact that he was on steroids or whatever, it comes into play like that, and people don't realize, they keep saying that wrestling's fake, these guys know how to take the hits and stuff like that, but we really do, get hurt in there. It's like, as much as the fans love seeing, personally me get beaten up, it does take its toll on the body, it really does.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, and your conversation with Benoit there is really enlightening. There's a lot in there that is so true. He did know what he was talking about, absolutely. But there's the tough question. I mean, obviously you're a fan of Chris Benoit, you love Chris Benoit, you respected Chris Benoit, much like I did, and then you come to a comfortable moment where you're like, he's a murderer now. Should I still respect him? Do I still consider him to be one of the best ever? Should I still say I'm a Chris Benoit fan? How did you resolve that dilemma?
I respect Chris Benoit, the wrestler. I'm still a fan of Chris Benoit, the wrestler. Chris Benoit, the human being, I don't respect. I believe those two very different people. Very different people. What he did to his family, that's completely unforgivable, and you can't respect a guy like that. What he did in the ring, you can only praise what he did in the ring. He was a great talent, underutilized talent, might I add. He for being world champion at WrestleMania, and the next year, being on the undercard, it was, I didn't like that at all. I really didn't. But so Chris Benoit, the wrestler, you can't ask for a better athlete. You cannot.
No.
Chris Benoit, the person, you might as well rot in hell for what he did.
Yeah, that's the tough question, and you're right. Do you agree with the WWE's decision to eliminate Chris Benoit from any mention on their on-air broadcasts and cutting some of his matches out of certain DVD releases? Do you think that's the right way to remember him?
Well, you got to look at it from Vince McMahon's point of view. Pretty much the whole story's out there, and the media has made up their mind on Chris Benoit as a cold-blooded killer. No matter what anyone says, what Vince can do, he cannot save the reputation that Chris Benoit put on his company, so you might as well 86 the guy altogether. I do agree for what Vince did, and he's just trying to save his own coattail, and establish some sort of thing for his company. I'm sure that Chris Benoit, the wrestler, will always be remembered as being part of WWE, but Vince had to do what he had to do, and I agree with it.
it's been a year now, and a lot of us have been able to kind of pick up the pieces from what happened and moved on. And it's a tragedy, and as you said, we all have jobs to do, and you have a wrestling promotion that you help run and help keep going, along with all your friends and associates in the business. You can mourn for a little while, then you got to go forward. Being that it's a year, I mean, apparently there is some impact on the business still today, as you're talking about getting sponsors and such. A year later, when you look back, I mean, do you think about it still? Is it one of those things that still you still ponder about? Or have you just kind of come to a quiet acceptance? This is how it is. This is what happened. Now let's just move forward.
Well, you try and do that. You try and accept it. That's how it is, and you got to move forward. But it's a constant reminder of how cutthroat this business can be on your personal life and your professional life. Like, obviously, somebody has told Benoit, or he's got the idea that you got to keep getting bigger and stronger, because the second you're not big and strong, that's when they're going to cut you, and you'll be back on the indie scene or back on your couch at home waiting for a phone call from someone to come pick you up. But that I don't believe is the case. Guys that come in from out of town to ECCW, especially the last crop that we had from Alberta, it's affected them more because of their hometown, Alberta. People don't want to go see indie wrestling anymore over there. It's hard for them to draw crowds to them, and I feel bad for that. But we're all slowly picking up the pieces and moving on here.
That's an interesting point. I hadn't conceived of that. Oddly, I mean, you'd say that'd be a natural thing for me to think about, but indie wrestling in Alberta and Calgary, where he was did a lot of his training, there must be some thoughts about that.
Oh, there's great thoughts about that. Like Superfly Dan Myers, when he came out here and he did a tour with us up in Kelowna, and it's still talked about there. There was one instance that it wasn't Superfly. I can't remember who it was, but they came out and they were hanging up posters out in Alberta somewhere for a show, and when they came back the next day, it was completely defaced. Benoit comments were made on it and everything. And there's also indie guys that are taking this way too far. They're playing jokes on each other, like, getting the Bible and, tossing on people and, trying to put you on hold and stuff, which is really, really disrespectful to the point where, your guy's family died. Like,
yeah, that's just uncomfortable.
The fact that he put a stack of Bibles by his kid like that, have some respect, man. It's the guy's family.
Yeah, that's a bit distasteful.
Really bad.
Well, see, that's the thing. I mean, no one at ECCW would ever try that, and I guess that's the difference between being trained with a passion for the business and I suppose having other mentalities into getting it. The training at ECCW is top notch, and we've produced, I think, some of the, I say we, I don't know why, but you guys have produced some of the best talent in all North America as far as I'm concerned, and there is a mindset that goes in there. There was nothing but respect in the aftermath of the Chris Benoit situation. And I guess that does come from a certain mentality, but I would imagine there's a little bit of anger too, and how it's affected your sport and how much more difficult it's made your life.
Yeah, there is a lot of anger still going through the veins for some of the wrestlers. And when it all happened, usually when a superstar or a pro wrestler has died, we do the 10-bell salute, and no one really knew what to do for Chris Benoit because of the circumstances surrounding his death. But ECCW management has developed a program. We're all given a sheet of paper with contact information if we do have problems with our personal life and professional life, whether it be drugs, alcohol, or depression, or whatever. And we're able to use that at any time. Other promotions have done stuff like that, and I don't know of any promotion off my hand that's given Chris Benoit the 10-bell salute.
I'm not aware of any.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any either, but I think that's the way to go. Awareness is the key. Like, drugs are not the answer. Steroids is definitely not the answer to professional wrestling. You just got to showcase your talents. If they like you, they like you. If they don't, you just got to get in that school, get in that ring, and show them that what you can do. And then eventually, you can't be denied by anybody.
So Chris Benoit hasn't killed your passion for the business?
No, not at all. If not, it's actually made me stronger into proving those doubters out there that, pro wrestling and pro wrestlers, we are athletes too. We hurt, we bleed, we pay the price, and, we're just there to give the people a show, a great show, and a memorable one at that.